Everyone, let's welcome Caitlin to TED.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today I figured we should start off with a little game of Did You Know? Did you know in Africa alone, 1 child dies every minute from measles? In a global scale, 1 child dies every 20 seconds of a disease that could have been prevented through vaccinations. In the 10 minutes I stand here before you, 30 children would have died from a preventable disease. Every time you look at a clock, I want you to see the faces of the victims. And it looks like this. These are your poorest and most vulnerable children that are at risk. These children face death because vaccinations are unavailable to them. Right now, over 30 million children are unvaccinated, and they are already vulnerable and are at an even greater risk of contracting diseases because they live in crowded communities, and oftentimes there is no shelter from the environment. Poor sanitary conditions results in a breeding ground for pathogens and easy transmission. There's no health care to them, or oftentimes it is unavailable to them. If you could give 1 child a vaccination right now, would you? That means for every 1 vaccination donated, 1 life could be saved. So, if every person in this room were to give a vaccination, the 30 children that could be dead at the end of this could possibly be saved. By giving a vaccination, you could take situations that look like this and turn it into this. Let me tell you how. My idea is 1-to-1. So this is how it works. Let's say Duncan over here wants to go to Indonesia and he needs to receive a vaccination. So let's say measles, mumps, and rubella because he never received it. He goes to his physician and he receives a vaccination. The pharmaceutical company will then donate 1 vaccination to a child in need. So how does this work? As we all know, there is a significant markup of vaccinations made by the pharmaceutical companies. So for example, hepatitis B vaccination, which a wholesale cost would be $36.67, you guys will pay $112 per vial. That is more than 3 times the amount. And this leaves room for at least 1 more vaccination to be sent overseas while still making a profit. And in return for their humanitarian efforts, the pharmaceutical company will in turn receive a tax rebate. And then I will then work with UNICEF. I chose UNICEF because they were able to donate 2.5 billion doses of vaccinations for 100 developing countries. And then they know what vaccinations are in need and can notify the pharmaceutical companies to then send them. So I have a few examples of vaccinations. I want you to look at the costs. So Daptocel, which treats diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus, only costs about $15.38. I want you to know, in 11 pharmaceutical companies in America, this year alone, made $85 billion. This year alone. They have room in their budget for these donations. But of course, with every great idea, we do face our barriers. So when we enter these underdeveloped countries, we have to remain culturally competent and respectful of their beliefs. So sometimes villagers prefer to seek treatment from elders or perhaps their tribal doctor. And we don't know how educated they are on vaccinations or what misconceptions they have. I plan to overcome this by partnering with UNICEF because they have successfully delivered and administered vaccinations while educating people in these countries about them. And access, of course, is a fundamental issue we all will face. But in war-torn places, such as Syria, and areas where natural disasters have occurred, such as Haiti, are these vaccinations available? Where can they get them? I hope that my plan would increase access to vaccinations for children especially. And if more pharmaceutical companies get involved with my plan, I hope that will increase access as well. And after surpassing these barriers, the results are huge. There will be an increase of quality of life. Children will spend less time falling ill, more time being productive in society. They have time to play, go to school, and help their parents instead of trekking miles or even days to receive treatment. Herd immunity could develop, so there will be a decreased chance of transmission among a village, and those who are immunocompromised will be relatively safe in compared to where they were previously. Expanding access to vaccinations can prevent an additional 1.5 million deaths each year and could save $151 billion because there will be a reduced treatment cost and there will be increased productivity of vaccinations. But time is crucial. Oops, what did I do? Ooh, all right. But time is crucial. The clock will continue ticking and children will die. But with your help and support, deaths can be reduced. Thank you. Any questions?
Two questions.
Two? Go ahead.
Pharmaceutical background.
Mhm.
A lot of the power with respect to lobbying in governments is within the pharmaceutical community because
Yes.
they have all that money. So it seems, I like your idea of having a tax break for them, but if they're the ones that are kind of have politicians in their pockets,
Yes.
it seems like a good idea, but I'm wondering how readily those pharmaceutical companies will be willing to relinquish their profits and their profit margins in order to help other countries.
Okay.
And I know, of course, there's the PR aspect to it. And it almost seems very similar to Tom's, where you buy a pair of shoes and a pair of shoes goes to another country. How do you think that you would be able to sway pharmaceutical companies in order to find other reasons other than PR to be able to do this?
Well, I know right now, especially, a lot of physicians are up in arms about the expenses, or rather the income these pharmaceutical companies are taking in. And I think now is the time to really start working towards this humanitarian effort. And I think they will jump on board, or at least I would hope that they will, because it's a benefit all around. Americans are benefiting. You're receiving your vaccination without paying additional costs. A child in an underdeveloped country will be receiving a vaccination that they've probably never had or never had access to. And of course, the pharmaceutical companies, they're still making a profit, you see, and with the tax rebate they'll be receiving, it probably will be more than what they actually dispensed. So with the cost absorbed, I really hope they recognize that in the end, they will come out ahead.
And just because I do like your idea, there's also pharmaceutical representatives giving away free trials to doctors and focusing that way. And it might be one of those things where you can pull some of those unused products that go to doctors and be able to refocus them that way. That could potentially be another way for the one-to-one team.
That would be an excellent idea. Awesome. That's something to keep into consideration.
Wait, I'll have to stop
Oh,
you.
okay.
We have one more speaker. We're going to run over time. Those of you who have to leave, we have one of the next class. Everyone, please welcome Kelly to TED.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kelly Cerna. There are many people who are generous enough to travel overseas to help those who are in dire need. Those populations who typically receive help are those who have been left weak, helpless, and desperate due to a disease that is endemic, the occurrence of a natural disaster, or a lack of natural resources such as food and water. However, when we think about the different ways we could contribute our time volunteering, we often overlook those who are strong and capable, but still need an equal amount of help. I'd like to start off by telling you all a story about a woman named Erin Curtis from Seattle, Washington. Curtis is a midwife who has her own home birth business in Seattle. Just like many others, she wanted to use her skills to volunteer in a place where there is a great need for help. So she embarked to Haiti for 1 week. Upon arriving to the hospital she would be volunteering at, she noticed too many patients crammed into small rooms, a lack of electricity, and doors and windows open to the air, allowing in mosquitoes and insects. Curtis was even generous enough to volunteer during the night shift when there would be fewer midwives on staff. It was just Curtis and 2 other midwives working this one night. Around midnight, Curtis noticed a pregnant woman in the maternity ward with dangerously high blood pressure, which she decided to treat with a syringe of medicine, but it had no effect. The other 2 midwives were nowhere in sight, so Curtis had to seek them out for help. When she found them, they were fast asleep in the labor and delivery room. Curtis realized she was on her own. She rushed back to her patient to find her next to a bucket full of blood. She was pregnant and had been hemorrhaging. Fortunately, Curtis was finally able to get the bleeding under control. As you can tell, there's an obvious problem here. A volunteer traveled from the US all the way to Haiti to provide her services to what she thought was a needy population. Meanwhile, 2 perfectly capable midwives slept the night away and allowed the volunteer to take full responsibility of all the patients. What excuse could they possibly have to defend their irresponsibility? The truth is, they were afraid of being raped while at work. Again, the hospital that they were employed at had no electricity, and it is common for attackers in their area to lurk in dark places waiting for a victim. In fact, a week prior to the incident, a female hospital worker had been raped due to those circumstances. Curtis later learned this information and was clueless as to how to address this problem. In fact, despite the cry for help from many women around the world, little has been done to address this problem. In India, women protest against rape. In Zimbabwe, women also fight for change. And in Colombia, there are also women who are sick of this injustice. Many like to play down the problem of sexual violence towards women, but it is clearly a significant worldwide problem. Collecting the data for the exact number of women who are raped every year worldwide is a nearly impossible task. But the proof that this problem is significant is in these pictures. My wish is for women around the globe to live their lives without fear of sexual violence, to be able to walk down the street at night and to not have to avoid those who appear dangerous, and especially to be able to do their work with confidence, even if it has to be done in an unlit area. Overall, I wish for women to be treated with the same dignity, fairness, and respect as everyone else. But how do we accomplish this? My idea is to create an organization which teaches women self-defense, which will give them the physical skills, confidence, and security of knowing that they could avoid an attack of sexual violence. With the proper resources, I would create DAISY, or the Defense Against International Sexual Violence and Inequality. DAISY would benefit women by traveling to foreign nations to teach female healthcare providers the art of Krav Maga, the national martial art of Israel. Krav Maga would be extremely beneficial to women in the areas where high sexual violence is prevalent for several reasons. First, the main objective of Krav Maga is to eliminate any threat the fastest way possible. It was specifically designed to be used against street attacks, mugging, and sexual assault. This makes Krav Maga the ideal method of self-defense for women who are in areas where sexual violence is prevalent, because it gives women the skills to quickly eliminate an attack before they can be harmed in a sexual manner. Second, Krav Maga teaches one to be able to defend themselves against multiple attackers or attackers who are holding weapons. It is common for women to be attacked in groups. Therefore, it is important for women to learn how to defend themselves against different types of attacks, whether it be an attack by one individual or group, or individuals who are holding weapons. Also, Krav Maga requires no equipment, therefore a woman would be ready for an attack at any time. Without the necessity of weapons, women would be able to react more quickly to an attempted attack. And finally, Krav Maga only takes about 3 to 6 months to learn, unlike another martial art such as karate, where it could take years to master. This time frame is ideal because it would allow us to quickly teach women the skills they need to know in order to be able to defend themselves adequately. Additionally, the 3 to 6 month time frame would be attractive for volunteers because volunteers are typically only willing to spend a few months abroad. If the training were more lengthy, there would be fewer volunteers willing to participate. The organization would work by recruiting skilled Krav Maga instructors to travel abroad to teach female healthcare practitioners the art of Krav Maga. Once the practitioners have been adequately trained for 3 to 6 months, they would be able to pass on their skills to women in their community. My plan would be to train female healthcare workers first. Many of the women who live in countries where sexual assault is common are also living in areas where infectious diseases are endemic. Unfortunately, these areas are also typically experiencing a lack of healthcare providers. They cannot afford to spare any experienced nurses or doctors. Teaching the female healthcare workers the art of Krav Maga would ensure that all trained healthcare providers are able to offer their services to all patients, whether it be a woman with a complicated pregnancy or a person infected with a disease such as dengue or cholera. Learning self-defense skills would offer a multitude of benefits for women, besides just being able to physically protect themselves from harm. Of course, if women had the skills to avoid the attacks of sexual violence, it would result in a reduction in the transmission of sexually transmitted diseases. However, I hope that if women learn the physical skills to defend themselves against attacks of sexual violence, it would also help them gain self-esteem. My ultimate goal would be for Daisy to provide women the courage that they need in order to find their voice and demand equality. If more women were to unite and demand education and work opportunities for everyone, I believe it would improve the quality of life for people in developing nations overall, not just women. A more educated population would lead to economic growth and self-sufficiency. If men and women of developing nations were to have equal opportunities, I believe that there would be a better chance for them to work together and eliminate factors that caused infectious diseases to be prevalent in their nations. As Nicholas Kristof stated in Half the Sky, in the 19th century, the central moral challenge was slavery. In the 20th century, it was the battle against totalitarianism. We believe that in this century, the paramount challenge will be the struggle for gender equality around the world. With Daisy, we could help take a step toward achieving equality for mankind. But the first step must be to give women the means to be able to defend themselves. So let's help all of the strong women around the world to gain the confidence and courage they need to accomplish their goal of putting an end to sexual violence. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
This is a multiple-part question, but I'll try to keep it brief.
Okay.
Have you personally trained in martial arts?
No, I never have, but I read this story one time and I found it to be so interesting, and I was researching different martial arts, and this one really stood out to me because of all the reasons that I stated in my presentation. It's very quick to learn, and it teaches you to defend yourself against multiple types of attacks. You know, it would be very difficult for one person to go against a group of attackers, but this art teaches you these different situations, even against weapons which are fatal. So this martial art really stood out to me the most.
Speaking from the experience of a 13-year practitioner of a martial art, I can tell you with a great deal of confidence that there is more to learning self-defense than just learning the moves and practicing them against a pseudo-assailant, if you will. How do you anticipate being able to teach women things like the ability to use their voice and to command presence to de-escalate the situation, and differentiating between different situations where that kind of action would be sufficient versus actually resorting to not necessarily just any risk of violence, but deadly force?
Okay, while reading about this sort of martial art, it teaches you it's strictly for defense, and the purpose is to get yourself out of a situation where you could be personally harmed. So I think it's important to teach them that, so women wouldn't abuse this power of knowing how to, being able to stop an attack. So this wouldn't be used as an act of violence. It would be mostly just for them to be able to protect themselves.
I should clarify, when I said deadly force, I meant with need to use deadly force. I'll rephrase. There are some situations where it is sufficient to say very forcefully, stop, get away from me, and attract attention. There are other situations where you're either alone or the assailant does not pay attention. So being able to understand the differences between those two situations and act accordingly. I didn't mean use your training.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, one thing is that since my priority would be to teach women who are healthcare workers in hospitals this skill, many times there would be other people around, so I think that it would be a good idea to teach them to call attention to the situation so they could have someone separate. Maybe they could isolate the attacker somehow and wait for someone to remove them from the area. Thank you.
That concludes our TED presentations. I want to thank all the jurors for coming, and especially thank the members of our class for some brilliant ideas. Really wonderful, creative, inventive ideas that were, I think, very well presented in the TED style. It's not easy, that's for sure. This course wasn't easy. It wasn't put together as easy. If you were ordinary students, we'd give you an easy course. So you deserve this. The last phase of this course, however, is going to be your greatest challenge. Remember, on May 8th at 11:30, you'll be coming to the 4th floor of CBLS. You will be competing for a job that will be posted. It is the job of your dreams. And only one of you is going to get the job, and only one of you will get an A for that assignment. So I look forward to that on May 8th, 11:30. You will have an interviewing committee that will be there to interview you for the job. The material for that is anything that's happened in the course for the entire semester, or in the morning paper, or any questions that anyone asks one during an interview for a job. We've all been there, we've all failed, and we've all succeeded. So let's hope that one of you will succeed to your expectations. So I look forward to seeing you then. Good luck in your rest of your finals. And it's really been a pleasure, a real pleasure with you guys. So thank you.